right on these ohms bubbles. One other thing that was very unique in that television picture, the spacecraft was upside down. And while it was upside down, at the top of that picture, you could see the curvature of the Earth. You could see what the Earth looks like from 130 miles, and it is a definitive curvature at that point. And it was just above the vertical stabilizer of the spacecraft, and the spacecraft was indeed upside down.
Well, there is thermal sensory equipment really on board, though.
Frank, I believe that and I don't know this for a fact, but I would tend to believe that there is monitoring equipment on board this spacecraft, because the spacecraft was designed to be relatively self-sufficient. We talk about minimizing the use of controllers on the ground because of the onboard computers. Yes. The entire concept of the development of this spacecraft was to be as self-sufficient as possible. Certainly we always need and can use help from the ground. So in determining problems, solution of problems, any malfunctions, including tile losses, I don't know specifically, but I would be willing certainly to guess that there is a capability to determine some tile losses in certain critical spots on board that spacecraft. Jules says there isn't, and perhaps that's true.
John Young told me there wasn't.
All right.
I don't form opinions.
What did John Young tell you, Jules?
What, Frank?
What did John Young tell you?
He said there was no way of telling.
Well, we understand there's a thermal sensory box.
That's experimental instrumentation in the cargo bay. That's part of the DFI, the Developmental Flight Instrumentation, which will not tell you if you're losing tiles on the underside or leading edge of the wing. I haven't investigated it thoroughly, but that's what Young told me when I interviewed him, because I've been deeply concerned about tile loss. You can't be a newsman in this business and not be concerned about something that critical.
Well, all right, we'll come back to this a bit later on, but let's go back down to Mission Control now, and Hugh Downs, who is in the cockpit simulator. Hugh?
Yes, Frank, Gene Cernen earlier mentioned the self-sufficiency that is on board. One of the things I think as spaceflight gets more sophisticated, it gets in a way more home-like. You'll remember that the very early flights, men had to remain in their pressurized space suits throughout. By Apollo, by Gemini, they were taking off helmets, and by Apollo, they were changing completely out of the spacesuit into a flight uniform. Here, missions will make possible a shirt sleeves environment where people will change completely out of, I mean, they can dress, I would imagine, however they'd want. They've gone to cotton now for comfort. Really lightweight clothing. There seem to be more room and more rooms. One might imagine that in the distant future, as spaceflight gets more home-like, there could be a fireplace in one of the compartments. Certainly the amenities are here. They have, in effect, a bathroom. There's a sleeping room, dining, eating in the deck immediately below us. This is the cockpit area here. Incidentally, the flight information recorder, which was stuck on, is located just after the seat that's across from me. That's a malfunction that is not going to put anyone in danger, but apparently that, I haven't heard whether that has been corrected or not. I think there is an analogy in aviation. In the early days, you had to have goggles, a leather helmet, heavy jacket, and now a man can dress as I'm dressed in a business suit and operate an airplane. So space is going to get more and more home-like in that way, and more... Frank?
Yes. Thank you very much, Hugh. That was interesting. Let's see where they are. Got a map that we can pop up here. Here we are. They've already crossed. They are over Madagascar and out over they're in the Indian Ocean, as a matter of fact, right now in their second orbit. We expect to have television in 20 minutes or so as we regain communications capabilities with the astronauts. Hugh Downs was talking about how the space travel is becoming somewhat more comfortable because they don't always have to wear those bulky space suits. And of course, the craft themselves are becoming somewhat more roomy, although I think I saw somewhere where somebody described the interior of a shuttle as filing cabinet gray or something or other in terms of comfort. Lynn Scher, however, has done a spot that tells us more about the living conditions on board. And here it is right now. Lynn?
When they're not controlling their craft up on the flight deck or working back in the cargo bay area, the astronauts will spend their time just living. Behind me is the area where they'll do their eating and sleeping while they're in orbit. It is not very big in here. In fact, NASA officials compare it to the inside of a Volkswagen. This is what you call a super efficiency space. It is the astronauts' living room, bedroom, dining room, kitchen, bathroom, and even exercise room all rolled into one. To start in the kitchen area, this is the sink. Well, it's not really a sink, it's just a water dispenser, and you can get chilled water or room temperature water. No hot water on board. One entire wall of the middeck area is covered with lockers, very much like the lockers that you'd find in a bus station, for instance. Now, they contain all sorts of equipment, and these two over on the far left contain all the kitchen equipment. So this is actually the kitchen, or the galley. The top one contains all the food that the astronauts will be eating, and it comes packaged, one meal for one person, in a little package like this. And in this other locker right beneath it contains the equipment for warming the food. Now, this is the warming unit, and it works this way. Even though the meals come in those packages, as we showed you, when you take one of them, for instance, this one is asparagus, and you add water to it or rehydrate it, just slip it on here. Here's some corned beef, slip that on here. You can even do it with black coffee, coffee with milk and sugar, even cans. This entire unit is electrically powered, and it will take approximately 20 minutes for all this food to heat up. Now, there's all kinds of foods the astronauts can eat. They get everything from scrambled eggs to smoked turkey. One thing they cannot have on board, alcoholic beverages. After the meal and for all other waste, here's a locker just for trash. There's even a locker up here which contains a medical kit for the astronauts. And as you'll notice, there are these little strips all along the locker wall. These are strips of Velcro. And they are so that, for example, this is a box of tissues, which also has a Velcro strip. So these things can be secured in outer space in their weightless condition. There's even a locker that qualifies as a bedroom, or rather, it contains the bedroom. Right here in this second drawer is something that is called a sleeping restraint. Now, a sleeping restraint is kind of an outer space version of a sleeping bag, and it works this way. It is attached to the top and bottom of the lockers into these holes. Two pins fit right in. Then the astronaut unzips the bag, crawls inside, zips it back up, and kind of hangs in there like a kangaroo in its mommy's pouch. Now, since there's no gravity in outer space and there's no up and down, it just doesn't matter that the astronaut is sleeping in a vertical position. There is also a toilet in the middeck area, and in later flights, they're going to make a curtain so you can curtain it off for privacy. That will be a first for outer space. After the first 4 test flights have been gone through, some of this equipment will be changed. For instance, this electrical panel will be replaced by bunk beds for the astronauts. But even when some of the equipment is removed and others brought in, this middeck area will not get any larger. And if you think it is cramped quarters for 2 right now, wait until the space shuttle really gets going. Then this living space may have to accommodate up to 7 astronauts at a time.
And they'll become very good friends if they're up there for a while. Thank you very much, Lynn. Very informative report. Now, let's see what they are going to have to eat today. We have the menu, which I understand is going to be flashed on the screen here, or at least is going to be given to me in my ear so that I can tell you what the astronauts are having. There you are, frankfurters, turkey tetrazzini, bananas, almond crunch bar, and an apple drink. Well, they're probably hungry. It's been quite a while since they had the steak and eggs. We're going to go off the air now, but we would like to remind you that we're going to have a special report at 11:30 Eastern Time on the progress of the flight of Columbia. And we'll also have a special issues and answers broadcast today at 12 noon Eastern Time that will be devoted to the subject of the Space Shuttle. And there will be pro and con arguments made on that program. So we think you'll find that very interesting. Also, we're going to have a report later on this afternoon for another television transmission at about 4:20. So we'll keep you informed on the flight of Columbia. For Max Robinson, for Gene Cernen, Jules Burgman, Lynn Scher, Becky Chase, and all the others who have contributed to our coverage this morning, my thanks, and we'll see you later at 11:30, about 2 hours from now, with another special report on Columbia on her way to a successful space mission.
This has been The Next Giant Step, ABC News live coverage of the launch of the Space Shuttle Columbia.